Good morning, students. Welcome to today's session. During the last classes, we have talked about an electric cell and the properties of electric cell, which means the EMF of a cell, potential difference, internal resistance, then combination of cells, etc. Now, according to the principle of current electricity, if you have a circuit and between the circuit means between any 2 points within the circuit, a potential difference is provided, then a current flow is possible through that circuit. So when you analyze a DC circuit, which means a DC current is flowing through a circuit, then what are the processes happening within that electric circuit? Processes means if there is a potential difference, current will flow, in which direction current is flowing, and when the current is flowing through the different parts of that circuit, what the potential developed across each part, and what is the amount of current flowing through each part. All these we can analyze using Ohm's law, provided the circuit is a simple circuit. So analysis of a circuit or DC analysis of a circuit means you have to find out what is the total resistance in the circuit, or what is the resistance in particular part of a circuit, and what is the current flowing through that particular part, and what is the potential developed across that particular part. All these defines, or all these involves the analysis of a electrical circuit, DC analysis of electrical circuit. So using Ohm's law, since Ohm's law relates resistance, current and voltage. So if you have a simple electric circuit, using Ohm's law you can analyze. Which means if you know the potential developed, current flowing through a particular resistance, you can find out the potential developed. Or V is equal to IR, using that equation, if any two properties are knowing, then the third property you can easily find out using Ohm's law. But sometimes the circuit will not be a simple circuit, which means suppose a total current flowing starts from a cell, and at a particular point current splits into different branches, and different branches of circuit elements are there, and different currents are flowing through different parts of the circuit, and finally at a point all these currents are joining, and what amount of current is started from the cell, the same amount of current is flowing back to the cell. So different parts are having different current, and different points within that or the different junctions within the circuit is kept at different potentials, etc. So that is known as a complicated electrical circuit. So for analyzing a complicated electric circuit, the Ohm's law is insufficient. Okay, so Ohm's law is not sufficiently enough to analyze a complicated electrical circuit. So what the problem is, Ohm's law deals voltage and current simultaneously. So if you want to separate, or if you can separate voltage and current separately, or if you can treat voltage and current separately within a circuit, the analysis will be more easy. So here we are going to start how you can analyze an DC electric circuit. So for analyzing a DC, complicated DC electric circuit, we need to separate voltage and current. So you have to define a particular law for dealing current, and we have to define a particular law for dealing voltage separately. So before entering into the analysis of a DC circuit, we are going to discuss two such laws which deals current and voltage separately, which helps us to deal with or analyze a complicated electric circuit. So these two laws are given by Kirchhoff. That name is familiar to you, Kirchhoff. Kirchhoff is a electrophysicist, and you can find his name in chemistry classes also. Kirchhoff's laws are there. So anyhow, Kirchhoff provided two laws. One deals with the voltage and the other deals with current. So these laws are known as Kirchhoff's laws. So Kirchhoff's laws are the basics of analyzing a complicated electrical circuit. So we can go for Kirchhoff's laws. As I already told you, Kirchhoff's laws are two: Kirchhoff's current law and Kirchhoff's voltage law. So Kirchhoff's first law is Kirchhoff's current law. Kirchhoff's current law is also known as Kirchhoff's junction law, or it is also known as Kirchhoff's node law. So first law of Kirchhoff, it is the current law, it is the junction law, it is the node law. So all these are same. So Kirchhoff's current law says that algebraic sum of currents meeting in a circuit, algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a particular point in a circuit is zero. Algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a point within a circuit is zero. That is Kirchhoff's current law. And from this description only, you can understand what is Kirchhoff's law, Kirchhoff's first law, or Kirchhoff's current law, and why it is called junction law or a node law. See, Kirchhoff's current law says algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a point within a circuit is zero, which means we have a particular point within a circuit. At that particular point, current branches, which means a total current comes to a point, and from there the current splits into different fractions. So that particular point at which the current branches is known as a junction, or it is known as a node. So current law says when the currents meet at a point, algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a point is equal to zero. So all the currents entering into that point is positive, all the currents leaving that junction is negative. So when you are taking the algebraic sum of all the currents, you have to consider all the currents entering is positive and all the currents leaving as negative. So all the currents entering is equal to all the currents leaving, which means algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a point equal to zero. See, Kirchhoff's junction rule. In an electric circuit, the algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a junction in the circuit is zero. In an electric circuit, the algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at any junction in the circuit is zero. So in the diagram, you can see different currents I1, I2, I3, I4 and I5. So I1 and I2 are, see the direction, they are coming to the junction O, the point O. And the point O can be considered as a junction. Why? Because different currents are meeting at that point. So the currents I1, I2 are entering into the point O. I3, I4, I5 are leaving that junction. So I1 and I2 can be taken as positive. I3, I4, I5 can take as negative. So when you are taking the algebraic sum of, you have to take I1 plus I2 plus minus I3 plus minus I4 plus minus I5. In simply, we can say I1 plus I2 minus I3 minus I4 minus I5 is equal to 0. From that, I1 plus I2 is equal to, all the negative terms you can take to the right hand side. So I3, I4, I5 will go to the right hand side. So I1 plus I2 equal to I3 plus I4 plus I5. What is I1 plus I2? I1 plus I2 is the total current entering into the junction O. What is I3, I3 plus I4 plus I5? That is the sum of all the currents leaving that junction. So all the currents entering into a junction is equal to all the current leaving that junction. So that is Kirchhoff's law. Algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a point equal to 0, which means all the currents entering into that junction is equal to all the current leaving that junction. That is Kirchhoff's current law. So that is Kirchhoff's current law, which says algebraic sum of all the currents meeting at a junction is 0. That is, all the currents entering that junction is equal to all the current leaving that junction. Now we can go for the second law, Kirchhoff's second law. Kirchhoff's second law is known as Kirchhoff's voltage law. It deals with the voltage. It is known as the Kirchhoff's voltage law. It is also known as Kirchhoff's loop law or mesh law. Mesh or a loop. So it's a closed path. So voltage law we are defining for a closed loop. When you consider a part of a electrical circuit and you consider a closed part of that circuit, and the voltage law is applied on that loop. So that is why it is called Kirchhoff's voltage law. Kirchhoff's loop rule or second Kirchhoff's law is defined as in any closed loop of a circuit, the algebraic sum of the product of current and the resistance in each part of the loop is equal to the algebraic sum of the EMFs in that loop. That means algebraic sum of the products of current and the resistance is equal to algebraic sum of the EMFs in that particular loop. Okay, so it is a voltage law and it is known as a loop law. So when you consider the loop in the circuit given below, you can find two loops there. And it is denoted as loop 1 and loop 2. And in loop 1, you can have, when you consider the loop 1, in that loop, you can find two resistors are connected, R1 and R2. And through the resistance R1, the current flowing is I1. And through the resistance R2, the current flowing is I2. And in that loop, two cells are there with EMF E1 and E2. So what loop rule says, it is algebraic sum of the product of current and resistance. Algebraic sum of current and product of current and resistance. That is I1 R1 plus I2 R2. In the first loop, the product of resistance and current, that is I1 R1 plus I2 R2, which is equal to the algebraic sum of the EMFs in that loop. What is the EMF present? E1 plus E2. So we can say I1 R1 plus I2 R2 is equal to E1 plus E2. I1 R1 plus I2 R2 is equal to E1 plus E2. Okay, when you consider the second loop, in the second loop you can find R2 and R3 are there, and only one cell is connected with the EMF E2. So when you consider the current, current flowing through R2, that is I2, and when you reach the junction A, you can find two currents are coming to the junction A, I1 and I2. You see the arrow mark of I1 and I2. So I1 and I2 are reaching to the junction A, and from the junction A they are adding up and flows as I1 plus I2, and that I1 plus I2 is flowing through R3. So the current flowing through R2 is I2 and the current flowing through R3 is I1 plus I2, and there is only one cell with the EMF E2 is there. So according to the loop rule, you can say I2 R2 plus R3 into I1 plus I2. That is the algebraic sum of the products of resistance and current in that second loop. I2 R2 plus I1 plus I2 into R3, which is equal to E2. That is algebraic sum of all the products of resistance and current in the circuit is equal to the total EMF. Total EMF in that circuit is E. So when you are considering the algebraic sum of EMFs and the product of I and R, you have to keep some rules in your mind. This is very important topic, Kirchhoff's law, because analysis of a DC circuit is based on this Kirchhoff's law. So in the problem solving aspect also, these two rules are important. So be very careful about the instructions that I am going to say. Okay, so when you are considering a loop, you can find the product of resistance and current and the sum of EMFs in that particular loop. For finding that, you have to travel in that loop either in clockwise or anti-clockwise. See, in the first loop, you can see two arrow marks are curved arrow marks are there with the anti-clockwise direction, which means if you are moving in that loop in anti-clockwise direction. Okay, suppose you are starting from B. You are starting from B. And from B to the upper corner, no resistance is connected. Okay. And from the top right corner to the top left corner, you are moving anti-clockwise direction. You started from B and you are proceeding to that loop. So B to the upper right corner you have already moved, no resistance you found. And from the right top corner you are moving to the left top corner. During that path you can find a resistance R1 is there through which a current I1 is flowing in the same direction as you travel. Okay, then that current you have to consider as negative. That current you have to consider as negative. Okay, then from the top left corner you are moving to the point A. There no resistance is connected. Now you are moving from A to B. Then you complete the loop. So when you are moving from A to B, you can find the resistance R2 through which a current I2 is flowing. But you remember, you are moving from A to B, but the current is flowing from B to A. So you are in the direction opposite to that current. So that current you are taking as positive. Okay. If you are moving through a loop and you are moving through a particular side in which the current is flowing through the same direction, then that current is taken as negative. And if you are moving in a loop through a direction opposite to the current flow, that current is taken as positive. So minus I1 into R1 plus I2 into R2. That is product of algebraic sum of the products of resistance and current. Okay, left hand side you can write minus I1 into R1 plus I2 into R2. Remember, you are moving along with the same direction of I1, so it is negative, and you are moving the direction opposite to I2, then that is positive. Okay, then now you have to go for the sum of the EMFs. So when you are adding the EMF of the cells, so some cells are taken as positive and the other are taken as negative. How you are taken negative and positive, that I will tell you now. And you are started from B to upper right corner, no EMF is present there. From the right top corner to the right left corner, when you are moving, you are finding the first cell E1 and you are meeting the negative terminal of the E1 first. As you move from the right top to the left top corner, you are meeting the negative terminal of E1 first, so that EMF you can take it as negative. And from right top to A, no cells are present, no cell is present, and from A to B, E2 is present. But when you are moving from A to B, positive terminal of E2 is finding first. So E2 can be taken as positive. So the algebraic sum of EMFs will be minus E1 plus E2, that will be E2 minus E1. So what you have got in left hand side, minus R1 minus I1 R1 plus I2 R2 equal to E2 minus E1. That is the equation for first loop. That is the equation for first loop. Similar way you can write the equation for the second loop also. Why we are making this kind of equations? These equations are used for analyzing a DC circuit that we will find when you are going for problem solving. Anyhow, you remember what is junction rule and loop rule. Junction rule says that algebraic sum of currents meeting at a junction is equal to 0. That means all the current meeting at a junction is equal to all the current leaving. The sum of all the currents meeting at a junction is equal to sum of all the currents leaving that junction. And loop rule or second voltage law says that algebraic sum of the products of current and resistance in each part of the loop is equal to algebraic sum of EMFs in that loop. So when you are moving, you can either move in direction clockwise or anti-clockwise through the loop, and when you are moving along the direction of the current, that current you count as negative, and if you move in the direction opposite to the current, that current you can take it as positive. And when you are moving through a particular direction and meeting an EMF, a cell, and if you are meeting the first negative cell, negative terminal first, then that EMF is negative, and if you are meeting the positive terminal first, that EMF you can take it as positive. So that is an easy technique to find out which is positive or which is negative for current and voltage. Okay, so that is Kirchhoff's laws. So here we have defined the Kirchhoff's laws, and Kirchhoff's laws helps us to resolve or analyze an DC electric circuit. So we have to apply these Kirchhoff's laws to solve some electrical circuits. So as an application of Kirchhoff's law, we can analyze a particular system of resistors, and that is known as Wheatstone bridge arrangement. That is known as Wheatstone bridge arrangement. So how you can analyze the Wheatstone bridge? And this Wheatstone bridge is also familiar to you. You already learned this Wheatstone bridge principle or Wheatstone bridge arrangement in your electrochemistry classes to find out the EMF of a cell, or to find out the internal resistance of a cell. For that we can make use the Wheatstone bridge arrangement. So Wheatstone bridge arrangement means it is a special arrangement of resistors. In physics generally we are making use this Wheatstone bridge so as to find out the resistance of a unknown resistor or unknown resistance of a given resistor. Suppose you are given with a resistor and you have to find out its resistance, and what is the resistance of that resistor, that you can easily find out using this Wheatstone bridge arrangement. So we can go for Wheatstone bridge arrangement now. See, this diagram shows a Wheatstone bridge arrangement. See, in this you can find out four resistors P, Q, R and S. Four resistors P, Q, R and S are arranged in such a geometry, and between two diagonal points A and C, between it's a parallelogram, and between two diagonal points A and C, you can find a cell of EMF E is connected, and a key K1 is there, and when the key K1 is closed, from the cell E, a current I is flowing from the positive terminal and reach it at the junction A. And see, between the another diagonal points B and D, a galvanometer with a key K2 is connected. Galvanometer K2 is connected. And when K2 is open, no current is flowing through the galvanometer. When K2 is open, no current is flowing through the galvanometer. And when you close K2, a current Ig will flow through the galvanometer. A current Ig means the current flowing through galvanometer. And see, when you are closing K1 and K2, the circuit will be complete. And when the current I reaches the junction A, you can apply your current law. What current law says? A is a junction, and from the junction, current can split into two paths through P and through R. So at A, current I will split into I1 and I2. I1 will flow through P and I2 will flow through R. I1 will flow through P and I2 will flow through R. Okay, so I will split into I1 and I2 and I will flow through P and I2 will flow through R. And I already told you when the current I1 reaches the point B, again B is a junction. And at that junction also that current I1 can split. When I1 will be splitting into two, then you can say Ig is flowing through G and I1 minus Ig will flow through Q. But here we are adjusting P, Q, R and S. We are adjusting P, Q, R and S in such a way when you are closing the key K2, no current will flow through galvanometer. Even though K2 is closed, no current is flowing through galvanometer. To make the current through galvanometer zero, what to do? You have to arrange the values of P, Q, R and S in such a way. That is known as the balanced condition of Wheatstone bridge. That is known as the balanced condition of Wheatstone bridge. So we can say that at balanced condition of Wheatstone bridge, there is no current through galvanometer. There is no current through galvanometer. So what will happen when I1 reaches the point B? It will not split into Ig and I1 minus Ig because Ig is equal to 0. In such a way you arrange P, Q, R and S. So what will happen? I1 will flow from B to C, and when I2 reaches the junction D, since Ig is 0, no current is added on I2, so the same I2 will flow from D to C. That is only happens in the balanced condition. So when the currents I1 and the I2 reaches the point C, again you can apply the current law. I1 and I2 add up and the same current I will come back to the cell E. I already told you what current starts from a cell, the same current will come back to the cell. So remember, I starts from E, reaches the point A, split into I1 and I2. I1 reaches the junction B, it will not split into Ig and I1 minus Ig since Ig is equal to 0, since Wheatstone bridge is balanced. So I1 will flow from B to C directly, and as I2 reaches the point D, there is no Ig flowing from B to D, so I2 will be moving from D to C. At C, I1 and I2 are the entering currents. They will leave as the sum I to back to the cell E. Now you come to that equation at A, that is a current equation. At A, I is equal to I1 plus I2. At C, I1 plus I2 is equal to I. So the current conditions are satisfied. That means whenever the current meet at a junction, current entering is equal to current leaving. That condition is satisfied. Now we can go for the voltage rule. When we can go for the voltage rule, suppose you consider the loop. See, at a balanced condition, the current through G is equal to 0. Current through G is equal to 0. So no current flows from B to D. Okay. So you can, when you consider the current loop, when the loop ABDA, when you consider the loop ABDA, I1 you are moving in the anti-clockwise direction. You are moving in the anti-clockwise direction. B to A you are moving in, you are starting from B and you from B to A, but current I1 is moving from A to B, so I1 you can take it as positive. So the first product of current and resistance you are getting, that is I1 into B. Since you are moving from B to A, I1 is opposite, so I1 is taken as positive. So the first term you can find there I1B. Then you are moving from A to D in the same direction of current I2, so that I2 into R you can consider as negative. So that is minus I2 into R. When you are moving from D to B, there is no current and there is no product of Ig into G term, which is equal to the algebraic sum of EMFs in that loop. See, can you find any cell in BADB or ADBA? No cell is connected in that loop, so the sum of EMF is equal to 0. So the right hand side will become 0. So your equation will become I1P minus I2R equal to 0, which is I1P is equal to I2R. I1P is equal to I2R. So I1P is equal to I2R, that you can mark it as equation number 1. Then another loop you can consider BCDB. You can consider another loop BCDB. You are moving from C to B. You are moving from C to B initially. You are here also, you can moving in the anti-clockwise direction. You are moving from C to B. In C to B, you are moving opposite to I1, so that I1Q term you can take as that positive. B to D you are moving, no current is flowing, so not Ig into G term will be there, because Ig is equal to 0. Then from D to C, you are moving along the direction of I2, so that I2 is negative, so minus I2 into S. So right left hand side, that is sigma IR terms are I1 into Q minus I2 into S. No more resistance and current is there in that loop. A, B, C, D, B. So you can go for the right hand side. What is there in the right hand side? Right hand side, it is a sum of EMFs. Is there any cell you can find in that loop BCDB? No. So there also the right hand side will become 0. So I1Q is equal to I2S. So you will get two equations, I1P is equal to I2R, I1Q equal to I2S. Remember, this happens only in the balanced condition of the Wheatstone bridge. What is the balanced condition? No current is flowing through the galvanometer. No current is flowing through the galvanometer. So you can divide it 2 by 1 by 2, equation 1 by equation 2. So I1P minus I1Q is equal to I2R divided by I2S, that is P by Q is equal to R by S. P by Q is equal to R by S. What it says? It says that when you are arranging four resistors in Wheatstone bridge arrangement, at balanced condition, ratio of resistors on either side of the galvanometer is same. See, P by R is equal to Q by S. That is given as P by Q is equal to R by S. At balanced condition, the ratio of resistors across on either side of the galvanometer. That means for the left hand side of the galvanometer, the ratio is P by R. To the right hand side of the galvanometer, the ratio is Q by S. Both are equal, that is P by R is equal to Q by S, which is equal to P by Q is equal to R by S. That is the Wheatstone bridge principle, that is known as Wheatstone bridge principle. So Wheatstone bridge is based on Kirchhoff's laws, but Wheatstone bridge principle says in the balanced condition or at the balanced condition, ratio of resistors on either side of the galvanometer is equal, same. That is P by R is equal to Q by S, or P by Q is equal to R by S. So that is Wheatstone bridge and Wheatstone bridge principle. See, the Wheatstone bridge principle is used in practical applications. So in your practical syllabus, one experiment is there called meter bridge. Meter bridge is based on this Wheatstone bridge principle. Meter bridge is based on Wheatstone bridge principle. So you will learn how to do meter bridge experiment in the practical hours, and its basic idea we will discuss now, and it will be easy for you when you are doing your practical experiment. So we can go what is a meter bridge and how you can perform the experiment with the meter bridge. Okay, so meter bridge, as the name indicate, it is a 1 meter long conducting wire mounted over a 1 meter scale. Meter bridge is a 1 meter conducting wire, long conducting wire mounted over a 1 meter scale, 1 meter wooden scale. And this equipment is used for finding unknown resistance of a given resistor. unknown resistance of a, if you are provided with a conducting wire and you are asked to find out its length, its resistance. So to find out the resistance of that given conductor, you can make use the Wheatstone bridge arrangement or meter bridge arrangement based on Wheatstone bridge principle. So we can go for meter bridge apparatus. See, this diagram is meter bridge arrangement. Meter bridge arrangement. So meter bridge arrangement, you can see AC. AC is a conducting wire of length 100 centimeter, that is 1 meter, and it is connected to a metallic slots with two gaps. In first gap, a resistance box is connected, and the second gap, a shunt resistance is connected. A resistance S is connected, and whose value to be calculated. The value of S is to be calculated. Okay, and see, a cell is connected between the points A and C, and between two gaps you can find another point D, from where a galvanometer is connected, and the galvanometer is connected to a metallic contact called jockey. Jockey is a metallic contact, and that is denoted there as B. That is, metallic contact is denoted as B. And length AB is L and length BC is 100 minus L. See, the cell is connected to a rheostat. What is rheostat? Rheostat is a variable resistance. That also you can find in lab. It is a variable resistor. The resistance of that rheostat you can adjust, the mechanism that you learn in your practical classes. So remember, rheostat is a variable resistance. You can adjust the resistance in the circuit by adjusting that rheostat. Okay, so you can find a resistance box from where you can keep a particular value of resistance. You can reduce a particular value of resistance, and conducting wire having length L and 100 minus L. Okay, see, when you are keeping that metallic contact at the point A, that means the point B, that arrow mark at B, that is a metallic contact. If you are keeping that at the point A, you can see that galvanometer is deflecting to one side. Suppose galvanometer is reflecting to the left. You know, galvanometer, its needle is always at 0 at the center, and if the current is flowing, it deflects from center to right or left. Okay, so when you are keeping the point arrow point, that is jockey, at A, galvanometer deflects to the left, and if you are keeping the jockey at C, the end point, galvanometer should deflect in the opposite direction. Then your connection is correct. See, when you are keeping the jockey at A, it shows left deflection, galvanometer shows left deflection, and the jockey connecting to the point C, the galvanometer shows right deflection, which means between A and C, at a particular point, galvanometer shows 0 deflection. When galvanometer shows 0 deflection, the current flowing through galvanometer is 0. So you have to find where galvanometer shows 0 deflection. The point on that conducting wire of length 100 centimeter, where the galvanometer shows 0 deflection, is known as null point. That is known as null point. And in the diagram, at the point B, galvanometer shows 0 deflection. See the diagram, galvanometer is showing at the center. That means galvanometer is showing 0 deflection at the point B, which means B is the null deflection point. B is the null deflection point. So at that point B, the null deflection point, the length of the wire between left end and jockey is denoted as L, and the rest of the length is 100 minus L. Now you can consider this as a Wheatstone bridge arrangement, in which one arm the resistance box is connected, and in the other arm length of the conducting wire L is connected. To the third arm, length of the conducting wire 100 minus L is connected, and the fourth arm, the resistance S is connected. Okay, then between two diagonal points cell is connected, and between another two diagonal points D and B, galvanometer is connected. So that is very similar to your Wheatstone bridge arrangement. And at balanced condition, you know P by Q is equal to R by S. So P, you can take it as the resistance offered by length L of the conducting wire, and Q is the 100 minus L, resistance offered by the conducting wire 100 minus L. So P by Q, you can take it as, what is P? Resistance offered by the conducting wire of length L. Suppose A is the area of cross section, L is the length, and rho is the resistivity. So P should be L into rho by A, and Q will be 100 minus L into rho by A. That is, resistance is equal to length into resistivity divided by area of cross section. So P by Q will become L by 100 minus L. From the first equation, we can write P by Q is equal to R by S. What is R? The resistance box from where you can take the particular value as you decide. So R you know, L you know, 100 minus L you know. Then you can easily find out the value of S. S is equal to R by L into 100 minus L. That is the method of finding the unknown resistance S using meter bridge, and meter bridge is based on Wheatstone bridge arrangement. Okay, so meter bridge is one of the application of Wheatstone bridge arrangement. So similar to meter bridge, one more apparatus is to be introduced that also you use in practical classes. But it is also based on the concept that when a current is flowing through a conductor, potential drop will be developed across it. When a current is flowing through a conductor, a potential drop is developed across it. So the potential developed across a conductor, a particular part of a conductor, is directly proportional to the length of the conductor, since a steady current is flowing through that conductor. Suppose that we have already seen here. Suppose a conductor of 100 centimeter is there, and if you are considering a small length L of that conductor, what is the, suppose a current I is flowing through that conducting wire, and what is the potential developed across a particular length L? So as the length increases, resistance offered increases, then resistance multiplied by current is the voltage developed. So as the length increases, voltage developed across that particular part is also increases. That is the basic principle of that particular instrument that you have to introduced, and that is known as potentiometer, because it is based on the principle that potential developed across a particular part of a conductor is directly proportional to the length of that conducting part, since a steady current is flowing through. That means the same current is flowing through each part, then potential developed across a particular part is directly proportional to its length, which means as the length increases, potential developed across also increases. See, the basic principle of a potentiometer is when a constant current is passed through a uniform wire means the cross-sectional area remains same. The potential difference across any portion of the wire is directly proportional to the length of that portion. Here, you can find AB is a potentiometer wire, and it is connected by a cell B1, battery B1, and a key K1, K, and rheostat RH. That is known as the primary circuit for that potentiometer. And in the secondary, you are connected a cell E, and it is connected to a jockey, galvanometer and a jockey, that is J. And at J, at the point J, galvanometer shows zero deflection. At J1 and J2, it shows towards left and right as shown. Okay, which means at J, there is no current flowing through galvanometer. That is a balancing point. And at J1 and J2, current is flowing through. So, very similar to in the meter bridge arrangement, when you are keeping the jockey at A, it shows left deflection. When you are keeping at B, it shows right deflection. A point between these two, it will show zero deflection. So where it is showing zero deflection, that is J. Okay, and if you are adjusting the rheostat, you can adjust the resistance through the primary circuit. Suppose when resistance rheostat is arranged in such a way, resistance in that primary circuit is less. What it means? More current will flow. More current will flow means more potential will be there in AB. So to balance that, you have to go for a larger distance with J. That I already told you, as the length increases, the potential drop increases. As the length increases, potential drop increases. So you just remember the basic principle of potentiometer, and you will do experiment with the potentiometer. Okay, so this is the basic principle of potentiometer. The potential drop any portion of the wire is directly proportional length of the portion. Since the conductor wire is uniform and a steady current is flowing through. Remember, using the potentiometer apparatus, you are doing two experiments. First, actually three experiments you are doing. First experiment we have already seen, as the potential length increases, the potential drop increases. The first experiment is potential drop experiment. And the second experiment is you can compare EMF of two cells. You can compare EMF of two cells using potentiometer, and you can find out the internal resistance of a potentiometer, sorry, internal resistance of a given cell. And you can see the diagrams used for these two experiments now, and the explanation we will give you when you are coming for the practical classes. Then it will be very easy for you. Otherwise, without any apparatus and all, I can't I think it will be tough for you to understand. But anyhow, the basic principle I will tell you now, and the experimental aspect you can do in your practical classes, because this is based on your practical experiment. So this is only meant for your practical experiment. This is a practical theories based, behind the practical aspects. So we can see that circuit diagrams now. See, this is a diagram for comparison of EMF. So I already told you there is a primary circuit for potentiometer apparatus in which we are having the battery V1, K1 and RH. That primary circuit will be common for all the apparatus or all the circuit including potentiometer. So that primary circuit provides a potential drop across the whole potentiometer wire, and the potential provided by the primary circuit is cancelled by the potential in the secondary circuit. That is actually we are doing with the potentiometer apparatus. A potential is provided by the primary circuit over the whole potentiometer wire. So when you are connecting another source of EMF in the secondary circuit at a particular length on the potentiometer wire, both the potentials will be equal. There the galvanometer shows zero deflection. That we have to find out where that the point where the potentials are matching. See, here in the secondary circuit you can have two cells with EMF E1 and E2. Both are connected to the same galvanometer G with different keys K2. K2 is a two-way key that you will find in your lab. And the point J, you can find the point J where the potential provided with the primary and secondary will balance. And that is the balancing length. So where you are getting the balancing length of E1 and where you are getting the balancing length of E2, then E1 and E2 you are not knowing, but where they are balancing with the primary circuit, L1 and L2 you are knowing. So L1 by L2 will be E1 by E2. In that sense, you can compare the EMF of E1 and E2 by taking the balancing length of E1 and E2 separately. Okay, so that is comparison of EMF. And see, this is the internal resistance of a cell. This is the circuit for finding the internal resistance of the cell. See again, the primary circuit remains the same, B1, K1 and RH. And in the secondary circuit, you are having the cell E, whose internal resistance to be calculated. In parallel to that, a resistance box is connected with a key K2, and again galvanometer is connected and connected to a jockey. Here also you are finding the balancing length of E with the K2 open and closed, and using that you are finding the internal resistance of a cell. Again, it will be explained in the practical classes with the apparatus and all. Okay, you remember all these three diagrams. I mean connection diagrams. Connection diagrams will be there with your practical experiment, and you can find the same practical diagram, I mean circuit diagram in your practical copy, I mean textbook also. Okay, so remember, meter bridge, potentiometer, both are your practical experiments, and you will thorough with these two when you are doing that experiment. But remember the basic principle and the method. So during this session we have gone through two laws, Kirchhoff's laws, voltage law and current law and voltage law. Current law is first law, voltage law is second law, and based on this we have solved Wheatstone bridge principle and Wheatstone bridge arrangement, and we defined Wheatstone bridge principle, and Wheatstone bridge principle is used for meter bridge, and we have defined another instrument called a potentiometer. Then you go through the textbook thoroughly regarding this meter bridge and potentiometer. Remember the collecting connection diagrams and the basic principle I explained, and you will repeat this meter bridge and potentiometer in your practical classes also. That's all for today, and we completed the DC circuit analysis now. So the first two units we have finished now, the current electrostatics and current electricity. Okay, so we will meet in the next class.